Hello everyone. Very quickly, I would like to talk about Mr.Within's tools for multidimensional handling. And so what this is I will share certain approaches I've had to my experience that have through more of a self-awareness has provided me more clarity of the experience I was having. So what that means is we're having experiences all the time, and even those times we think we're not, it's just the reference point is not. So in other words, it's not this physical body, but it's another collective sense which is allowing another individual. So think of it this way, that if you were this mighty being who, bought a bunch of tools from Home Depot, so or from a store, you would see that you have many options in many ways to bring manifestation. So similarly, we are a manifestation of our own greater collective knowing. These are things you innately are aware of as a being, and you don't need interpretation. Think of every word you've ever heard as just poetry, but you still need to have your own experience. Poetry gives you clarity, but also provides a bit of fantasy for you to understand that your limited reality is a bit limited. I'm very grateful for many sacred hymns written throughout the ages by many realized beings. If they just shared these in schools, wow, the minds of our youth would be enhanced. Anyways, when I say multidimensional handling, and when we look at the concept of multidimensionality, this is where your individual experience is not, it's as if you who've been thinking that you're an individual being your whole life, in your walk of life, you have suddenly come to a moment where you have been aware of yourself more. And, whatever moment of life you're brought in, it's very important to be aware that you observed your sense of being in more than the same way. That is why it felt like a new experience to you. When a human being is feeling things are new, it's because he's allowing his sense of being to fluctuate, and as that fluctuation happens, it's as if imagery is re-looked at. So it's as if consciousness gives another sense. We are constantly having rebirths on the subtler planes of how personality is coming into our personhood, but on a very abstract level, there's a very empty but collective presence that is keeping all these personal structures afloat, let's say. We need to understand that handling multidimensionality is simply being aware of your experience to then, through a greater existential allowance, flow into whatever experience that is needed for you. It's very important to be aware of this, because this sense of this will change. That's the whole point, Meditation may at first look like something which is just asking you to sit down and close your eyes. But no, it's one of the most deepest existential confrontations you will go through. It is you being aware of why you exist, and to work with this in a way where life is no longer even kept in a dynamic of illusion. In other words, maybe our ancestry was just looking at the same things for way too long. And so if we are a temporal being but are present here, our duty is to contribute to the contribution that is humanity's awareness to being human. Anyone can contribute. Even a child can contribute. Our technologies must learn from the observance of many of those realized beings, of the Zen master, of the yogi. We must incorporate these senses of reference, because they are healthier than the senses of reference which we're getting from media and all the things we've been conditioned to, in a sense, look at. The night is cold, but you're still walking, just as I am doing right now. So you must recognize that your consciousness is the awareness to what is real. But at some times, for that real is constantly changing, your awareness will be unreal. It will be profound in the manner that it is allowed. When an aspect of your experience is allowed, your freedom becomes your clearest gaze. You must see what your constitution is and very, in a masterful way, navigate, not throw away your ego or think you're guilty or you shouldn't have something, but to acknowledge everything in the present moment with mastery. This mastery is at first an idea trying to handle the situation, but then as this idea becomes more of an attention to the direct experience, it dissolves. And so you see that is when intuition is enhanced. Now, to get to the essence of this talk, the core of it, your moment of experience will engage you with your imagery in the sense that your association is no longer with the physical body. Your association becomes to that which is observing the physical body. And so don't try to understand this linearly, because it's a non-linear dimension. So in other words, horizontal thinking can't really see how it could be vertical. But that intersection knows. So you must clearly notice that man is a self-aware being, and in his self-awareness, he is at some degree of association of a changing phenomena, but also an unchanging phenomena as the observer. Because the observer is your presence being very clearly recognized through self-reflective reality. Some people may get interested in concepts of multidimensionality in the way where they think, wow, it's like the next sci-fi. But at the same time, there are some people who will get interested at this without knowing why. Just something in them will pull them to the understanding that their greatest contribution in this reality is to communicate their eyes. Communicating vision is actually what enhances man the quickest. Because think of it this way. If a bunch of people in a CEO, let's say boardroom meeting, are all thinking of an idea, if someone gets an idea, that person needs to communicate it so others become aware of it too. So to understand that your greatest contribution is your greatest communication to all existence, you will then, in that sense, no longer try to make yourself a satisfied character in the story, whether the satisfied character is utilizing psychedelics or whether this character thinks that it needs to go meditate in a cave, in the sense that it's embracing the imagery rather than the actuality more. We want to observe that multidimensionality is at first how we are finding it real, but in a sense of state of self-awareness, as you've sat that in that deep self-contemplative manner, you will see that your thought will come in front of you. And so there's the immediate paradox. The fact that, for example, when you look at a mirror, there's another version of you there. Regardless of the science, just the fact that you see that relationship. So when that is there on your subtler planes, you must realize every movement of imagery is being observed. And as every movement of imagery is being observed, that means there is a moment of existence that is that information. So you will see sometimes in life you are associating with things, but if you found the mystic's love for the unknown, for the beyond, you would see that if you want to move beyond this plane of dimension, you have to confront this first. You cannot think that you're leaving. You cannot just be like, oh, I'm going to leave, because if you do, there's still someone who thinks he can do it. That is also the danger of having too much confidence, in the sense that it's as if your intentions are trying to build a successful version of you, but that success is hollow because you're realizing that your life has gone to an activity that has satisfied a temporal body. Every human being must be aware that they are the next communication. They are the next great philosopher or scientist or poet or artist or whatever. They are the next human being who will go on the stage of humanity and communicate. The stage of humanity has hugely grown thanks to globalization. But now the performers must be aware. There are some performers that are in confusion. What that means is we need less videos on YouTube and more videos on actual things. Many people think the young generations are lost. And it's because they see how the way society is built is limiting our youth from knowledge by giving them more of a consumerist attitude, more of wanting things from a certain domain. When society and culture gives you the colors, rather than you not authentically choosing the colors, you will always wonder, what was my choice, right? And sometimes you would, if you could take that deeper, it wouldn't be what was my choice, who am I? What am I? Who is this my? It's very important for you to become aware, because imagery is just the beginning. The treasure revealer must become aware directly beyond sound. And you are capable of that because your collective knowing is your initiation into that ability. You will see it. It's just like the moment will take care of itself. The most important thing that a human being requires is trust in life. It is a very simple thing, because this trust in your reality means that there's no reality that can touch the observer. And this observer, at first we call it an observer because we're associating with a form. If we never did, there would be no observer. We would be the observance of all existence. So consciousness right now is very playfully recognized to be individual for man. But as man is working with that individuality and seeing how that individuality is based on everything, so it is integrative in nature, the observer is found. Paradoxes provide that sense of an observer. And so Japanese koans are a true work of genius. But a genius that does not require to have its name remembered. It's very important that a lot of people are working for companies, but not a lot of people are working with the silent knowledge of their harmony. What that means is, once you go into a very calm state, a very meditative state, you will see your ability in your subtler realms has increased, because your awareness to your subtler realms has increased. So when I sit down and when I go very deep, there's a point where there is imagery, but then it leads on to a point where there is nothing. And from here on, it's unspeakable, but my experience becomes very present. And so how I would communicate it is that it's like the dot trying to understand, the line, and the line trying to understand the plane, So when we look at the plane of existence, if we are looking with a sense of individuation, we will see that we will constantly be in this atmosphere of wanting to break things up or connect ourselves with something, It's as if the minute you recognize you're an individual being, either get with the program or, go do your own thing. So it's very important in life we realize our humanity is simply like perhaps the gentle tool of a Japanese craftsman. Think of it how delicate the handling is. The handling of reality is a very beautiful and simple phenomena, and do not think simple means you're not confronting the complex. Trust me, because sometimes when you access certain simple moments of observance, in your subtler range, worlds blow up. What that means is they blow up because they integrate, and all integrations infinitely. It's as if you don't need probes. Just your subtler realms are infinitely searching for everything, because your mind is asking the deepest questions. You're just not aware of it. We think we're not utilizing our mind. If we become sensitive to it, our imagination is just the edge. Beyond it, you are of a greater intelligence that is beyond even space and time. Do you recognize this? Your mind was never there to show you an objective truth of where the inspiration of life comes from. Your mind was there to be a reflection of all that is the totality of observance. That is why self-remembrance is profound, because as you remember, your collective knowing is, in a sense, made more clear consciously for you. So, in some regards, you will find yourself a person in this life suddenly confronted by, let's go with the most easiest level, stress, depression, and any problem that physicality has. You will see problems are a multidimensional thing, because you can't see them, but you're always thinking that you have one. So problems are something that are relevant to the mind. When you see it's relevant to the mind, and you're stressed out, and you don't like how you're handling your environment or communicating to your environment, and it shows because people around you are acting differently, it's very important for you to align yourself by stilling the body. Go find a comfortable chair. Go lie down. Just be still. Now, after you have been still, it is now important for you to become aware of the imagery that is bothering you. And at first you think this is a physical problem. You think it's something that externally needs to change. But you must see that the more you, as your body is still and in your simply calmness, you're observing. The beauty of your silence, similar to a lighthouse late at night on the island of your breath. There is a serenity in inaction, because in inaction at times we're given the observance of greater action. So similarly, you being on that bed is a multidimensional handling, in the sense that you are becoming aware that your origination of suffering and struggle is an internal phenomena. If man was simply a portal, think of it this way. If literally we were on that exact moment where the portal moves from one reality to another, let's say similar to, let's say, the portal in Stargate or something. Let's use that imagery. You see that the concept of a portal is that two realities are connected. So a portal suggests that different planes of existence and experience are connected. However, think of it that we, as the human being, have suddenly gotten self-awareness. We have this horizontal dimension of everything being physical, external, but suddenly some of our experiences are like vertical. You know, it's like, wow, this is profound, this is multidimensional, you know? It's as if there's more beyond the horizon. So as we look at our vertical dimension of awareness, we suddenly see that we can take objectivity and carry it with every image that is creating suffering with us, to a point where it's as if we are throwing it in the sky as an individual, and then suddenly becoming the whole sky, looking back at everything fall down. And as everything falls down, you're no longer the individual, but suddenly you've gotten the experience of the sky. And so similarly, in looking at the imagery of your stress, you have created the condition by using the word create and thinking that certain communication and things you've done have caged you in a reality. No, every moment you are not just a new man, you're a new being. You never step in the same river twice. And as many graceful Zen masters have said, there was the story of this old man on one side of, the river, and from the other side, this guy comes and, shouts to the old man and says, "Hey, old guy, how do I get to the other side? There's no bridge." And the old guy stands up, and his eyebrows are covering his eyes, and he shouts, "You are on the other side." And so we simply see that multidimensionality and simultaneous realities is the moment where we could see the other side, in the sense that we could confront our whole spectrum. We could see that person who was suffering and totally have their experience. We could see all those people who need help, and a part of our being shouting to trying to go help them. Do you know? And it's very important, because all the worst sounds will suddenly turn into a roar the moment you know your being. It's as if there have been times where it hasn't been a strength where logical strength. It hasn't been a logical strength, but sometimes there has been a moment where such a strength has come in me, where this strength it's just how I observed it later. In that moment, I just knew, to the moment that I was acting quicker than I could think. And so my instantaneousness just simply did so many things. It's that moment when I stopped trying to multitask, that multitasking was being done. And I recognized that, wow, our existential sensitivity is the problem. And this problem originates from names becoming too real and media making us think that there's a way out of an illusion, which is our own blindfold on our own face. It is very important to know your culture, know the sciences of externality, understand knowledge of the physical world with a sense of infinite beauty. Always learn from your moment of being. However, also understand that as you are learning, you are here to increase your own dimensions of life. It's as if since you've been born, you've been doing it naturally, but now it's just slowed down. What that means is you were a child, and when you were a child, you're like, oh God, this new sense of existence. And many people think this is a hell, but no, it's not. It's a beautiful heaven if you tune into it properly, but it's not the only plane. That's simply it. So when we begin to look at just this sensitivity, we dissolve into worlds and worlds and worlds made out of a single rock, falling into a cosmic pond, rippling, creating ripples. When we stop taking ourselves personally, when we stop taking our planet personally, internal dimensions open up in a way where you are consciousness, you are beyond space and time, you have reached the unspeakable barrier, Think of it as a new barrier and experience. And from this point on, I have nothing to say, just to say that your knowing and your heart of hearts will guide you at that point. And so you must simply trust everything that is present in front of you. Regardless if you're a physical being, regardless if you are transcendent, whatever sense of being, you must trust that which is there, present, perceived. And only then will order and chaos become one, not in a mind, not for a man, but for all that is present. However, your handling will change in the sense that some experiences are unspeakable, but some are, and some actually really need to be talked about. So let me get back to those that really need to be talked about. Your multidimensional handling is, again, think of it, you're back on that bed and you're just having an observance of your thought. Your thought at first is something where you're moving with it. Just as you're thinking, you're also aware, okay, I'm thinking, and there's this thought of me here, and there's that. But you see, that is simply the projector being left on. As the projector is being turned off, you will suddenly see a sense of association of other goes, similar to how late at night, you're just so tired that your sense of other is not present. It's as if you're just moving your present body. your physical body, you know. You're just moving and you're like, gosh, I need to get to bed, you know. And it's as if all other has faded. But that's not done in a conscious way, and usually when you're tired, you're not receiving it with the best imagery. So it's very important to see that consciousness allows itself to remember from its individual sense of self as a collective knowing. And when that happens, those imagery will fade. You will suddenly become like that hidden dragon and crouching tiger master who took steps on the river and just suddenly, you know, on the pond, you know, took very gentle leaps on the pond and just kind of like flew in the air for a bit too long to a point where it was, you know, extremely unreal. So it's very important to see that your navigation is gentle as your observance will align you, similar to how the rhythm of your heart is aligned to all life. You are alive, but you are alive beyond imagery. So don't take your imagery too seriously, but at the same time, very playfully bring mastery into your life. So sometimes, very playfully, I do things that just open worlds for me. And if I get bored, I recognize that it's only a very lazy. I don't want to say lazy, but it's a very bored being who remains bored. When you have hit a moment where you're like, gosh, I'm bored, that's the moment where you should be like, gosh, what should be my life's work? What should be my ambition? What should be my direction? You know, and where do I want to, you know, flow as a great river of being? You're a presence here. Since you came into manifestation, your life's work has begun. Don't think that you're here to write a book. No, you're here to be present. That is more valuable than the cultural value that is given to your sense of identity that is kept because of a lack of existential confrontation. We must not create hindrance for ourselves. We want humanity to advance in maybe 10 years beyond that it ever has. How it advances? Communication of ideas. And so you might sometimes think that I don't have great ideas, but you might see you have some ideas. And these ideas, if they are authentic, if they are from your experience, you can communicate real information that can make the human being efficient. We must see that our society is going towards a way where if we look at the future too much, we can create fears that will make us incapable. When fear can be present, you must recognize that your association must be fluid. So that moment when suddenly someone comes out on the street and comes and tells you, oh my God, the world's going to end, the apocalypse is happening, you must have a sense of fluidity in hearing that. If you suddenly take that completely real, you would panic. It's as if you would exchange it for a second. For a second, you would exchange it and say, oh my God, what if it's true? And then suddenly your friend would be, yo man, let's go. The movie's about to start. And suddenly you'd like, you'd come back to reality, you know? So back to that immediate reality where there's a sense of normality. You must see that being normal is simply how you're accepting your experience as a human being on this plane of existence. And so you must ask yourself this question: is multidimensionality something for me? Do I want to see beyond what I want to know? Do I want to understand what transparent could, in a very directly and experiential way, be? We must have a curiosity of exploring life. That is the purpose of life. That is how survival of the fittest. Before there was survival of the fittest, it was survival of the aware. Whoever was aware of somewhere, it's like, oh my God, it's just like they would go there and they would survive. And if others weren't, they wouldn't survive. So survival of the fittest is actually, before, if we go a deep layer within it, is survival of the aware. Because those who are unconscious just, in a sense, leave. It's as if those beings who suddenly do not take care of their physical body turn do not take care of their physical body, turn into a something which wishes to be unseen. And you will you will also build stuff on the way. I also want to very quickly communicate this. So at first I said tools for multidimensional handling, guys. But when I say tools, they're simply imagery you work with, incorporate within yourself if you choose to, similar to how you would train. It's a form of training in thought. And then as one trains in that dimension of thought, one begins to see that they will never, it's as if they know, at least you clear, it's as if you might not have extrasensory perception now, but you will become one of those people who has very clearly observed life. Do you know? So what that means is, guys, we don't want to think about picking up trash at this point. Picking up trash is a very inferior task compared to getting rid of the trash in man's mind. And so the trash in man's mind means that who are you beyond all that you are now? This is not a question that has an answer that you need to give to me or anyone else. This question is an answer that must be found within yourself. And you must look at it. You must see that routine is fun, but at the same time, there's a sense of decay in it. It's as if in this whole time, you could have explored life. You could have traveled both in your internal dimensions and external dimensions, And your self-awareness to existence will provide senses that how would I say it? You will immediately move towards what's comfortable for you regardless the moment you close your eyes. So regardless of how much of a physical guru people require, if you're here and if suddenly you close your eyes, you would see that it's as if only sound will guide you. It's as if when you close your eyes, the world of form can no longer guide you, no more imagery can guide you, it just becomes sound. But sound does still create imagery because you have seen images before, and when you look at the phenomena of how that all, in a sense, comes together and in a sense mixes, there is a spiral of a sense of awareness where you are multidimensional because your ability has been the observer and also the object of observance. You take imagery from your direct experience of externality and you observe it so deeply that you come to a new understanding. And so you become that human being who's no longer worried about picking up the trash, as I mentioned before, but that human being who, whatever, even if aliens came down, even if extraterrestrials came down, you would be so aware of life. Do you know? That is as if we would know before they would be here. Do you know? And in a sense, that's what I'm saying playfully, because externality is a very interesting thing the minute you find your internal dimensions. It's as if it's something that can all absorb into a nothing where you navigate as consciousness differently. Some people have seen, wow, consciousness has such a great ability. It brings a body into life. It gives, worlds to see. But one of the abilities of consciousness is to navigate between these worlds in ways that it has created them. So sometimes how I know how to navigate on myself realms is because I become aware of the creator within the creation. And so as you are constantly aware of the creator within the creation, that moment which is communicated in many ancient teachings from many ancient wisdom traditions, you would see it would be as if, because you are confronting both sides of the spectrum, it is providing you with two satisfactory wings to fly through these tunnels of reality. As you begin flying through these tunnels of reality, you will see that if you are an observant being, you will not be interested. It's as if the search will no longer become the search of Bob. It's as if it would suddenly move from that existential attention that is in Bob, and suddenly Bob would observe himself as not just him in the room, as the room, and also him. It becomes like how concentric circles are always kept within a greater circle. So similarly, It's as if that moment where you've reached the imagery of your plane of existence, you see your plane of existence is imagery before you decide if it's real or not. So regardless of interpretation, if we are constantly trying to interpret things as an individual being, it's as if we're reflecting and not being allowed outside of this box that has mirrors inside, you know? You know, we don't want to be a laser caught in its own reflection. So, and that idea is very meaningless, by the way. So now, again, to take this to a point where it can be comfortably utilized, your simultaneous awareness to things will allow you to navigate through your subtler planes in the sense that you are aware that you are neither creation, you are neither creator, because you have the ability to be both, and you also are the observer of both. And so this observance is a natural, innate knowing. It's a very clear knowing. It's that moment where you literally have no ideas because there's nothing to be an I. It's as if these eyes have always been pillars keeping this illusion of ego up there, do you know? But once you break the eyes, it's as if suddenly we have taken Thor's hammer and we're breaking these pillars of illusion, which are not illusion on their own. They're just words, are just what it is. It's not an illusion, but our approach to them and our utilization of sound and interpretation of sound is illusion. Because sound has maturity as well, and this is a concept that has not been communicated too often. But sound has maturity and it's also alive. And so you are a vast combination of different sounds focused in a way where you exist and you don't exist in many ways, in infinite ways, from the same possibility. It's as if that moment think that you only put 3 of your fingers in the water and not even completely, just halfway, and you simply saw how, you know, it's as if from individual ways they were all moving back. It's as if each one was bringing you an understanding of the surface. It's as if your palm became a parallel plane to the water. But guys, I'm being very playful here because I like to be very poetic when we speak about these abstract realms. Be authentic, be honest, be natural. And be compassionate and be self-aware. These are immediate tools you can utilize. The other things that I said were simply different experiences, which again, the tool is simply you becoming immediately aware of who you are and how the vastness of your collective knowing is keeping your individuality. Do you know? So it's very important you become playful with life and to trust life. Do you know? Who is it that has the permission to come and tell you not to trust life? Do you know what I mean? What that means is if I'm that guy who has an orchard where it's that tree where this kid with a textbook keeps, coming under, and I don't like it. Let's say I'm the owner of the orchard, But let's say I have planted this beautiful apple tree. Imagine someone coming up to me and saying, "Hey man, don't eat that apple. Don't eat that apple. That apple is not real." Imagine someone coming up to you and telling you that apple is not real. You would see that that person might have an awareness to their internal dimensions and believing and knowing that that is it, but they're still confusing of the external. And so what I mean by that is that person who owns the orchard would tell that person it is extremely real because in my reality I have planted the seed, I have watched this grow. Who are you to tell me that this is not real? Who are you to tell me that my experiences are not spiritual, are not multidimensional? Who are you? You will see you are an individuation which I have allowed you, because that's my ability. Every being has both an internal experience and an external experience. And so when two beings communicate, they have many dimensions. It's very profound. It's as if their externalities can hold hands, but their internal dimensions are chaotically bursting in the way that they know they are. And so externality is something to be cherished, and that's why you see there are many quotes. There have been many stories, and to tell you some very quickly, it's as if, what does a sage do before before enlightenment? Chopping wood, carrying water. What does a sage do after enlightenment? Chop wood, carry water. Do you see? It's as if he realizes the collective knowing, but the individuality isn't left untouched, because your knowing is untouched. That's how you are a collective observance. Again, another story back from, let's say, ancient Persia. Do you know there was a man who was a shoemaker, this old guy, and there was also this other guy who was a very smart alchemist. You know, back then he was a polymath too. He was I don't know, a mathematician, philosopher, poet, whatever. And so this guy goes to this shoemaker, and he's having his shoe done. And back in the day, you know, they had this metal, and so the guy's hitting there, and this old guy is maybe like 90 years old, and this 90-year-old guy, you know, his clothing is ripped apart, and he has no kids, and he's just working there, you know, all alone. And so this guy, this let's say, alchemist in his 30s, suddenly takes out an elixir, and, you know, he's like, all right, let me help this guy. I know how to make lead into gold. And he suddenly does something, and he makes this stone, this metal thing, lead into gold. The old guy sees it and just stops hitting the shoe. It's as if he's like, what did this guy just do? And he just looks at him. And this guy looks at him and says, turn it back. As if he's communicating not to his humanity, not to that person, but to that being. He's like, do not touch something that must be left untouched, you know. And so that person says, what do you mean, old man? I'm doing you a favor. Don't you understand? And the old guy says, immediately turn it back. And the guy's, you know, he starts to get a bit nervous, and he's like, no, our sciences, you need to understand, our sciences do not allow me to turn this, to change this and take this into another sense of alchemy. The old guy looks at him, and it is as if it is no longer an old guy, but all of existence. It's as if all of creation as life is communicating to this man, to this alchemist, and see, this old man simply touches that metal, which was gold, and it transforms back into the substance that it was. And the guy continues hitting the shoe as if nothing happened, as if he's just forgiven Hercules as Zeus, you know? And so this alchemist, by the way, sees this and goes into this profound search for spirituality, which gives him a great understanding of life, which he communicates. But the whole point is that you leave the external untouched, but it is not that you don't have ambitions. It's just that the way you're aware of the direction of your life is, on one level, individually very couple dimensions you have an awareness of. But in your multidimensional plane, you are an awareness of all dimension. So if you are playful, and if you can utilize it, you can build an awareness to reality that is constantly, directly absorbing itself in what is its clarity, which is empty. So it's constantly bringing out worlds and making them empty, bringing them out worlds, making them empty. And this is all naturally being done because you are the flow of and the movement of your collective knowing. You're that person who's walking the park and knows that he is in exactly the right place. And so you will be carried to perhaps a beautiful shore where your visions are your experience. They are no longer ambitions even. It's as if that there came a point in Martin Luther King's life where suddenly he was there. There was no longer a dream. It was the happening. It was the actuality. And so he moved on there as a general of life, carrying man to greater understanding. And so we need more people like this, and many people are. You do not understand. People are also, in the sense of multidimensional existence, being more born into collective knowing. Each generation is bringing in more of an ability of all those generations before combined. You will see it, trust me. There will be some times where you will think your designs are Nikola Tesla's inspiration, and there will be other times where you will think that you are from what lies beyond stars. There will come many times where you will think that you are that man who was in many incarnations in the same place. You might sometimes think that you are not a man, and so you are a cloud of light projected in many ways. You might think that you are a moment and nothing more. You may think that you are carried into eternal and infinite spectrums simply because you know you are the creator. All these signify the ability of man to blend into the great experience that is all life. If you are considering yourself an individual experience, and you're considering me an individual experience, and you're considering all those other people as an individual experience, you will suddenly see that when we all come together, oh my God, it's as if all our moments are shared. It's as if we were no longer that individual. You know, it's as if our externality confirms that we're all in the same place. Because if you took two people and who were friends, and suddenly you put them in separate rooms, you know, let's say you took two people who were, let's say you took you and your girlfriend, right? And you and your girlfriend suddenly are taken into two different boxes, you know, two different worlds, and for let's say a couple hours you remain there. You see, when you were together and you knew you could be together, your thoughts flew a certain way. Suddenly, when you were put in an environment where you had to confront everything you knew in just a moment of emptiness, you know, you would see that it's very important to not take your reality seriously. That is what all emptiness teaches you. It is not something that will make you go insane. If you think you're going to go insane, that's an insecure mindset on its own. And so the pilots of consciousness never get caught in limited communication. Insanity is something that is subjective to each person, because no one's the same. If we were to take these little things that people do, this, if I'm saying right, idiosyncrasy, if we were to take all these little perks that people have and all these little things that people do, and we were to analyze their little movements, they would look insane to you, you know? And it's because everyone has their own interpretation of what is normal. And so sanity means different things to different beings, to different moments of observance. We must not be afraid to talk in this reality. You only have one time to communicate, do you know? It's like, you know, have fun, but at the same time work with an efficiency that is moving the genius of mankind further. Contribute intuitively to all that you are, and you will see you will suddenly go into flows where where externality will guide you. You see, if abundance is a very unnecessary concept, and it's actually a concept that will immediately make you confront the emptiness of your wealth. Abundance is an image you put as an individual consideration of having certain things in a certain way. But abundance is something where you can have temporal abundance and you can have eternal abundance. When you look at temporal abundance, you're looking at everything you're seeing physically. Everything is temporal. But eternal abundance is the awareness that is aware of the temporal. So that which is aware of the temporal cannot be temporal, regardless if we want to keep the imagery of eternity or not. That which is aware of the temporal is beyond the temporal. And so man is his greatest cognition, which then is an observance of his knowing as existence. Existential intelligence is unnameable, it's unspeakable. How are we defining ourselves? How do we have psychology being accurate? You know? So I really appreciate the effort that has been put in psychology and what it's contributed in the understanding of the mind, but it is not an accurate understanding. Do you know why? Because it is an understanding that is a snapshot, but we all require an understanding that is like a video. We require a dynamic, experiential knowing rather than one where we're just put something in front of us and we're like, okay, could it work like this? No. We want to go in states where we're no longer thinking, oh my God, could this work or not? We want to go into states where we know it works. And that is when the greatest designers and engineers of mankind will find their stage. They will find their stage. Do you know why? Because their excitement is bursting. Their designs are there. They see that they need to take initiative, but they must trust life and through a humility walk. You're not here to push others. You're here to put your hands very calmly on your side or maybe gently on your back and just walk with a very straight and clear posture. You just want to walk comfortably to your destination. Just take that imagery. Regardless if your destination is, trying to be a millionaire, or if it's heaven, or if it's the newest thing, whatever it is, remember that you're moving. Your externality, regardless of how much you take away your ideas, as long as you physically exist, will give you new ideas. So it is a generator, and you must understand it is the intersection of your multidimensional understanding. When I say your intersection, see, a part of me is communicating right now in the sense that there's a voice and there's images and there's association and there's simply my character and personality having an ability to self-reflectively show an audience their presence. However, what is beyond man is something where if his focus and concentration to his plane of existence increases, he will explore all his ideas through a new dimension of intelligence. Guys, these are just words. It's something that you suddenly go and experience. It's awesome. It's a collective knowing. It's that moment where illusion cannot be a cage that you can even identify. It's as if your freedom cannot be caged, but because it's an untouched presence. It's present. It's as if my compassion even extended to the leaf that was crumbling because I could see myself within it. It's a very beautiful experience. It's as if in this life our only task is to allow our experience to very playfully work with its sense of creator and its sense of creation all being one within the moment. You at first need tools for multidimensional handling, but you will see, then you will become a treasure revealer. You will throw away all tools recommended, and you will create your own tool, and you will design an invention for man that will not be the greatest thought, but also an entrance into what lies beyond that thought. It's as if eternity is no longer a word. It's as if love is no longer a word. It's as if compassion has become an actuality. And meanwhile, that compassion has become an actuality. Even hate has gone in an experiential dimension, but we are aware that we are the collective observance of it. Trust life as it has kept you existing. Think of your ideas as not lesser things. Do not think that do not cage yourself in the idea of whether you're smart or stupid. No. You are a new moment of existence. Your contribution, your communication, your simple breath is the greatest thing that mankind has ever seen because it's the newest thing. It's something that you're doing. Do you know? Even that person who thought he's copying someone else was providing a new dimension of what he was keeping. It was every communication of the human being is a new experience. And our awareness to experience takes us from not just accepting an other, but to observing that other by realizing it emanates from self. and self emanates from the origin of awareness, which is unspeakably your heart of hearts, or the knowing of all that is all. Much blessings and namaste.